Good afternoon, everyone. I am Natalie English, President and CEO of the Wilmington Chamber of Commerce, and I'm glad to have you with us today this beautiful week in the Wilmington area with a little less humidity and a little less heat in the area. It's been really nice in the mornings to walk my dogs. I hope you all are enjoying it as well. I'm excited about the information that Family Forward NC is going to be joining or sharing with us today. As we start this first day or second day of the new school year, there are challenges amongst us as employers with ensuring that our folks can get to work and or do their work from home while also ensuring that their children are cared for. And so our webinar today will focus on family-friendly workplaces and how they can support your business to open or retool earlier and more strategically in this pandemic. We're excited to have with us today Lisa Finaldi, who is Community Engagement Leader from the North Carolina Early Childhood Foundation, and an HR team from Performentor, including an expert in hospitality. So as a reminder, the program will be recorded. So if you have any technical difficulties, you'll be able to see the recording within about a week after we finish this with some more information about how you can work with Family Forward NC going forward. And I'd also like to thank our partners in the community, New Hanover County Smart Start, the Convention and Visitors Bureau, Kim Huffam, and then Visit NC 365 for partnering with us on this program. And so with that, Lisa, I'll turn it over to you.
Well, thank you, Natalie, and thank you to the Chamber for hosting us today. Next. Today we're going to talk about family-friendly workplaces. My organization, the North Carolina Early Childhood Foundation, hosts the program Family Forward, and we've been working for 2 years with businesses across the state to engage them and educate them about how family-friendly workplaces support productivity, recruitment, retention, and also children's healthy development, which is my organization work is based on. Our focus has been on research-based policies, and we have a guide that I'll show you later to family-friendly workplaces where you can find out all about these programs and how your company could consider the opportunity to institute them. Next, please. Next. So my organization, just briefly, is focused on ensuring that each child in North Carolina has a strong foundation for life. And that means that they receive the support from their families and their communities in those early years, because we know that is the most important time for the growth of our children. Next. So I'll just give you 1 minute on brain science. So you might ask why we're focused on the birth to age 8 years. And that's because we talk about brains being built and not born. This is the most rapid period of human development. And it's so important that children have healthy and quality experiences during this time. And every experience is built into your body, whether they're positive or negative. And over your lifetime, it has an impact on simple things like your social and emotional health, your vision, also your physical health has been shown to be affected by those early experiences. So we want them to be quality and educational for our children. And the reason these third grade period, like I said, the 0 to 8 is so important. Many of you are parents and you know about that third grade reading test. And that really is a predictor of academic achievement for children as well as their career success. So we're very focused on ensuring that by the time we get to that test, that children are really on the right track. And how you can help is because by supporting your employees and their families, you are helping to build the workforce of tomorrow. Next. So our program today is going to look at opening earlier or retooling with a more strategic advantage. Family-friendly businesses also will help you bring employees back to work more quickly and more fully. They'll be able to concentrate more on their work. And also it will provide a sense of safety for employees. And we know right now that this is critical for people to want to come back to work. There must be a culture of safety so that they know that not only will they remain healthy, but also there is safety when they go home to their families. So with that, we're going to take a minute to have a poll. Oops, sorry, one more slide before the poll. Next one. Just to describe the Rapid Response Program in partnership with the Performentor, and you'll meet our folks from the HR team here shortly. We've created a COVID Rapid Response Program, and this is a 3-part webinar series. This is number 1. There's also 2 more recorded programs, and those will focus on bringing back employees earlier and more fully, and also that creating that culture of safety. And then we've created companion kits that go along with those webinars. And we have one for hospitality and one for manufacturing, although both of them can apply mostly to other industries. What I think is important here is that these kits will complement the webinars, and it provides those tools and the materials that you need to sort of reflect on what do your employees need, how may you be able to provide them. And it gets you really starting to think about how family-friendly workplaces can work for your business. And there are big and small opportunities that can work for you. And then finally, our HR experts who are here with us today will be not only talking about what we can do with you, but also we will be providing some direct work with them, and you would have to apply for that. It's a very simple application, but as a result of being present on this program today, you will be able to apply for that support, and also you'll be receiving the other recorded webinars and the Return to Work kit next week. Next. So here's our team today. Amy Riles from Performentor is going to be talking to us about family-friendly workplaces. Amy has been an HR executive. She really knows how to work with businesses to strike that balance between the needs of your business and these family-friendly benefits. Amanda is working on another program with us, and she is focused on behavior and how behavior has such a big impact on safety and culture in your workplace. And today, mostly we'll be hearing from Jim Niedow. And Jim's focus is on hospitality. He's worked in both the operations and the HR. He's working currently with companies in North Carolina who are moving towards retooling and reopening the restaurants. And so we'll hear a lot and learn a lot from Jim today. So next, we will take a minute to just get a sense of the room being in quotations, to find out what word best describes you or your business with regard to the impact as a result of COVID. If you're going to pick the other choice, then you should give us a word or two. So we'll just take about 30 seconds for you to take a minute to answer the poll. I think we're there, Samara. Thank you. So if you see I think you can see the results as well, understanding that this is a real difficult time for businesses. There's a lot of stress out there, but we also see that there is some curiosity and empathy and also responsibility to your employees. So to me, these all seem like there's an opportunity here to work together. So we look forward to that, and we can stop sharing. And then I am going to turn over the program to Amy.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you to the Chamber and to Natalie for hosting us, and to Lisa for such a welcome and warm introduction. I'm so happy to be here with you today. We have exciting things to talk about. We have some real honest conversations we can begin to have around the impacts of this pandemic and what we may be able to do together to help businesses and employees. And you know, this team is one that really understands that family-forward workplaces strengthen our state. And we also know that this pandemic has had major impacts across all businesses and across all of North Carolina, and especially hard hitting in the hospitality industry. So we understand it's no small task, but we also think there are lots of smaller and larger steps we can take to help. So first, we just wanted to talk through a few of the impacts that COVID-19 has had on this industry, and bringing you a little bit of data here. I think there are subjective and objective things we're all facing, but 98% of food service employers have had to make some kind of modification or adjustment to their operations to respond to this pandemic. So essentially everyone is working through this and making changes that they did not expect to make even 6 months ago. About 60% of employers are also having to revise or revisit or create emergency preparedness plans as a result. About 80% have already decreased hours for employees, whether that's because they've had to reduce shifts or just reduce staff. And this is a large percentage compared to the 38% of employers across all industries. So again, we understand this is hard hitting in this particular industry. We've talked a little bit, and we will talk more about the childcare crisis that is looming as a result of this pandemic. And it is a huge obstacle to get across, both for employees to return to work if they are working parents, but also for employers to get their staff back to work. So the really shocking statistic here is 32%, which is a number to reflect on just for a minute. So that's less than a third of all employers or businesses are planning for this by thinking about how to offer help to their employees to overcome the childcare issues. So I just want to highlight that because this is a huge opportunity for us to make a difference. Next slide. As a team, we also know that as challenging as this pandemic is for businesses, it's presenting major challenges for families and for children in particular. So as a result, about 2/3 of all families have lost income or experienced a decline in that. They've had reductions in hours, some have been laid off or furloughed, others have lost their jobs entirely. All reports are indicating that we are going to see and are already seeing deteriorating mental health, both for working parents and for their children. And unfortunately, a lot of the supports that policies and legislation might put into place are either lagging or haven't been invented quite yet. So we don't necessarily have the supports in place that are needed. And COVID-19 is both a health crisis and a caregiver crisis together. So this is adding additional burdens on families. And so we are also seeing employees who need different schedules. Either they need part-time work where they previously needed full-time work, or they have to work a different shift. Some may need time off altogether just to get their footing under them. And finally, all of us, including you and including your employees, are experiencing new demands on their time, fears, a loss of control, and loneliness. And these are just things that we can't leave at the door when we show up to work. So it's just important to acknowledge them and find ways to deal with them appropriately. So with that, I want to introduce Jim, who's going to take us through the main content for today and tell us more about how we can work through this pandemic as an industry.
Thank you, Amy. So we're going to talk about the hospitality industry moving forward. And there are some high-level changes coming to our industry. It's interesting in that we would never be able to make such change without this pandemic impacting the industry as much as it has. So I think we're poised for some quick change, and never has there been a better time to think and act differently. The people side is where we're going to see much of the change. Already we've seen takeout sales become a major source of revenue. In-room dining has been dropped by 50% capacity. Much of that's due to physical layout and social distancing. and staffing models will look much different in the future. Every hospitality, food service, and tourism business has made significant changes, but there's still so much more uncertainty ahead. We still wonder about phase 3 and what that will look like. What about the additional PPP funding? And all the unknowns about the future. So good or bad, this industry is going to look and feel much different. Next. Turnover in food service, hospitality, and tourism nationally has averaged about 75%. For many of your businesses, that number is probably more like 100% based on the seasonality of your business and the type of food you serve. Typically, quick service and fast food tends to run a higher turnover rate. Inc. magazine estimates the turnover cost about 150% of the departing employee's salary. So as owners, we must focus on this shift at cost of turnover. So in addition to having a reputation of high turnover, many hospitality jobs are perceived as undesirable, associated with low wages, lacking job security, or opportunities for promotion. But moving forward, we're no longer going to be able to sustain this 75% turnover and the cost associated with it. In HR, we often talk about the cost of hiring, and it's much a soft cost. It's very hard to calculate, and even harder to calculate when you look at the cost of training and retaining your employees as well. So moving forward, we're going to need to look at this soft cost as a hard P&L line item. Next. Thank you. But we have responded as an industry. Almost half of the organizations are now offering a paid leave. And the rest of the organizations that can't are doing the next best thing and offering an unpaid leave. We've seen a lot more training going on and development, much around the pandemic in general, but it's a good start and it's directional for sure, because more businesses are considering doing so. And then more than a third of the businesses have experienced noticeable increase in requests for employee assistance programs. These EAPs have typically been the most underutilized benefit that we've ever offered, but now they're getting a lot more popularity based on the benefits they do offer with regards to legal advice, mental health advice, and all the different things that really are impacting our workforce today. So you're in good company, and simply by being here today, you're learning the best, most efficient, and most effective ways to offer your employees family forward benefits. And this ultimately is going to ease their return back into work. The NCRLA says we still have 350,000 employees out of work. So not only are these workers coping with COVID, they've been left unprepared without access to any of these family forward benefits or very little family forward benefits to handle this pandemic. So this has become painfully obvious by the strain on our economy. And we know you feel it too. Next. And employee needs are changing. Interestingly, the psychological contract between employees and workers has not changed for many years. It's still about hiring for organizational fit. It's still about wanting to develop our employees and the employees wanting to have opportunities to advance. But employee preferences are radically changing because of this pandemic. And now there's a need for greater flexibility with scheduling options. The hospitality and tourism industry really needs to respond because we are at the future of work. Now, many of these new preferences that we're seeing are millennial-based and or generational, which is changing the dynamic and demographics of our industry. We suspect this change is going to continue to accelerate. Next. Research shows that to new employees, benefits often outweigh compensation. Many say, 76% say they will opt for a better benefit package and less compensation when they're accepting positions. An equal number of the millennials that have been surveyed said that a flexible schedule will make them more productive. So how does a hospitality business go about designing employee benefit portfolio that's not only competitive, but also spot on when it comes to meeting the diverse needs of our multi-generational and multicultural workforce. It's done primarily by benefits benchmarking. So we look at the industry, the region, and the size, but it's also important for you to keep an eye on the benefit packages of other local employers who are aggressively hiring. And this also includes outside of your industry. It's all contained within your market. You're going to need to stand out as an employer that values its employees by offering superior benefits. Now, I know that your initial thoughts here when you hear about this is, well, how can we possibly afford this when our revenues have been hit the hardest? The answer is really you cannot afford not to, but that's why we're here to help. Next slide. So how do we provide affordable healthcare and other wellness benefits? We're going to show you and talk about that moving forward in the next couple slides. But many family-friendly benefits can be a minimal investment. Think about this as a competitive advantage with regards to the future of work. We will talk about new staffing models and these family-forward benefits that could be offered at a minimal cost. In some cases, they could be offered cost neutral. And I guess the last thing I want to just reiterate is that this isn't a sprint. It's not going 0 to 60. It's really a marathon. And we're going to help you take one step at a time. So let's talk about some family-forward benefits. Next. Within these 6 categories, there are about 16 different policies and practices that you can find on the Family Forward North Carolina website in the research guide that Lisa mentioned a little while ago. Let's talk about a couple of these though. So paid leave. We cannot have our employees coming to work feeling sick because they cannot afford to miss a day's pay. There is just simply too much at risk to getting their coworkers sick, customers sick, and potentially closing down our businesses. Think about the reputation. Flexible work. Creative scheduling will be necessary. There's no doubt about that. And it may in part help your labor costs. We have one client that has a very robust lunch business. And as they were getting busier, had to hire additional employees, but really couldn't afford to bring people in at 8 o'clock and have them leave at 4 o'clock. So how do you find people to work down the middle of the shift? Well, we talked to the superintendent of schools and talked to a couple school bus contractors, and we hired some school bus drivers. And they would drop their kids off at school and come to our business and work from 10 o'clock. They'd set up lunch, work lunch, break down lunch, and at 2 o'clock they would leave and go pick up their kids at school again. A win-win. Predictive scheduling. We need to be acutely aware of the ramifications on parents today that are dealing with childcare challenges, and it's more than ever. And now think about virtual school just opening on day 2, the challenges that your employees are facing with that. I know we all can identify that with that. Health and wellness benefits, we'll talk a little bit more about that too, but a creative approach will help retain your staff. And in the past, we used to say, there's no way we're ever going to be able to offer health benefits in food and beverage. But really, technology has helped change that. Think about telemed. And then childcare. We could talk about childcare for hours. It is the most significant issue that we're facing right now, not only in this industry, but all industries. But for starters, simply changing your attendance policy to lessen or excuse childcare-related absences will make a difference. Many employers are subsidizing childcare. I know of one company that's offering childcare workers a reciprocating discount in exchange for emergency drop-in care for their employees at a local facility. So let's do a quick poll, and I want you to tell us which 2 family-forward benefits will have the most impact, you think, on your employees. So select 2 of these, please. All right, we have about 60% are telling us that the top two are really childcare and flexible work, as well as paid leave comes in there close. Thank you. Next. Build better teams and win business. Family Forward Benefits can help you recruit new employees. The key message here for us all is we need to hire employees who want to work for us and not need to work for us. So think about the low-cost additions that you can make to have a strong appeal with tomorrow's workforce. And if you don't know where I would start, ask your employees what they think. What is it about your value package that will keep your employees from leaving? Now think about what the average hospitality worker has just been through. Do you think the definition of loyalty has changed? Consider accruing paid leave as part of a PTO package. Affordable health benefits or childcare is an opportunity that will definitely give you a competitive edge. And through our consulting, we'll be able to help you explore some potential ways to do that. Next. Understanding how to right size and right fit teams with creative scheduling is going to be your competitive advantage moving forward. At Performentor, we've designed a customized staffing matrix tool utilizing your specific labor needs and costs to determine a staffing point that allows for a maximum amount of labor hours at the lowest cost. Also giving you the ability to have ample coverage to support some of the challenges that your employees are going to continue to face moving forward for quite a while post-COVID. One of our clients is scheduling 3 shorter shifts per day instead of the traditional AM, PM, 7 to 3 or 3 to 11, allowing parents to better plan for childcare. We can't do that for every employee, but not every employee needs that. But the ones that do, it gives them a great option to be able to schedule childcare and have an easier transition back into the workforce. And we absolutely understand that many of these examples we're talking about today and recommendations will cause additional work and effort on your manager's part. But think about this scenario. An employee comes in and tells you they need a couple weeks off to go out of town to take care of a family member that's sick. What is our typical response? What I've heard is, well, give me a call when you get back into town, and if we have any availability, we'll get you back on the schedule. Now, that doesn't make the employee leave feeling very good. They're probably stressed about, I have to go take care of my family, but what about my job? And that's been notorious the way that food service, hospitality, and tourism has treated people. What would happen if instead we said, that's really difficult. We're sorry to hear that. Go take care of your family. That's more important. Give me a call when you're coming back and your job is protected. We'll get you right back on the schedule. Please understand your business will never be the same again, nor should it be. And this also includes the cost associated with turnover. So the message here is taking that cost associated with turnover and using that elsewhere to benefit your employees. Next. Let's talk a little bit about predictive scheduling. In the past, in the food service business, would post work schedules on a Thursday or Friday night for the following Monday. That's still happening today, believe it or not. There will be no longer an acceptable practice. Many of your employees will have multiple part-time jobs and need to know when they are going to work in order to plan for childcare. Let's look how you can utilize your staffing model with predictive scheduling as a competitive advantage. And again, many of these are low cost. Predictive scheduling will give you your employee coverage for peak times of business. It will reduce your turnover. You'll also have the ability to cross-train your employees to do multiple jobs. What I like is it's going to give you a strong employment brand in the marketplace and hopefully enough staff to avoid blackout times for vacations, peak volumes, and when that employee comes to you and says they have to leave for a couple weeks. So throughout the program, we'll look more closely at each of these items and determine the common drivers that best support your business. In the old hospitality industry, candidates applying for work really dictated the ratio of full-time to part-time employees in your business. In the new hospitality industry, this model needs to be driven by your business needs. Next. I want to give you an example. Koan and Soka in Raleigh, two of our better restaurants in the Triangle, have always been very creative with the food they serve, but also are getting creative about their people practices. They started paying a living wage of $15 per hour to all employees, both front and back of the house. And they're providing their employees with 14 days of paid sick leave. Why? Well, it's simply, we can't afford to have our employees come to work when they don't feel well. And paying a server $2.13 an hour, they are not going to stay home when they don't feel well. They're going to come to work. So we need to incentivize them to stay home. To offset some of this cost to the business, they're charging their guests a 10% sustainability charge. This is a new Family Forward case study for us, and you can learn how Sean and his team did this on the Family Forward North Carolina website. One of my favorite stories is Sean recently told his executive chef to stop working 6 days a week because he was taking a shift away from one of his cooks that needed the pay. Simply, it's the right thing to do, and it matters. And we have to find a way as an industry to make this sustainable. Next. The paid leave we just spoke about is so critical now and will continue to be so moving forward. Paid sick leave benefits are rich for parents and for employees and employers, and very much needed in the food service business, hospitality and tourism. Paid sick leave avoids many downstream effects. It's really the difference between proactive and reactive when it comes to your employees and customers. If we take anything away today, it's our employees cannot come to work when they don't feel well anymore. Family Forward North Carolina Research Guide has some really great information about these benefits and how to implement them. And as part of participating today, you'll also have access to our online communities to learn from your peers. Next. When we talk about the future of work, we need to explore what benefits will resonate for our employees and provide the best options for you. Let's review a couple that will work with the part-time workforce. Usually when we're consulting in the business, we outline a strategy that's not only customized, but works for your specific business needs. Paid leave, we've talked about that, and that will be the price of entry. Make no mind about that. Accident and catastrophic insurance will help your employees sleep through the night. Don't take my word for it, ask them about it. What difference that would make. We talked about telemedicine. That will cost as little as $20 per employee per month. And EAPs as well. A robust EAP will cost as little as $25 per employee per year. What would this do for reducing your turnover and retaining a part-time workforce? Don't forget about free perks. Many clients are getting creative. One of ours is offering gift cards to employees to bring family members and friends in to eat when they're not working. Many employees can't afford to eat where they work, but this also gives them a chance to see the customer service and the business from the customer's point of view, while making them feel proud to be part of what we're doing. Next slide. We talked about the return to work kits earlier, and within that, there's some customized reopening checklists. These checklists ask many thought-provoking questions, and there's also several assessments to get you ready for opening. It offers a new way of thinking, challenging what we know. Some examples might be around the traditional meal period and the initial staffing requirements with questions to address. Is it possible that you can serve food throughout the day instead of closing between lunch and dinner? Can you offer an off-meal discount, encouraging people to eat lunch at 2 p.m.? That would make sense with social distancing guidelines. Can you stagger shifts where employees come in at non-traditional hours based on the team or the function they provide? And would your employees or some of your employees consider working 4 10-hour days and have an additional day off? And what that will do will limiting their time in a potentially at-risk environment. So much of this requires some out-of-the-box thinking, and we are here to help. It's been 6 months now, and it's definitely a new ballgame with absolutely no room for error. As I close and pass this back to Lisa, I think another message for today is having a worker-first mindset, which requires meeting the distance and protocols and unique PPE requirements of our business for the safety of your workers. Our employees are looking to your leadership, you guys, in support for staying healthy and productive. So we'll turn it back to Lisa for another poll. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. We're going to do one more poll, and then we'll have some time for questions and answers. And the questions and answers, we will use the chat box. So please feel free to start putting your questions in there as they come to you. So the question is to see what your initial reaction is to the program. We'd like to hear a little bit more about that sort of immediate response to the webinar and to the Family Forward Rapid Response Program. So we'll just take a minute. Okay, I think we can end the poll. I never know how long it takes between the time you click something and that the results come up. But so I see that there's some people who are unsure and others who would like to talk more. The good news is that no one has checked that it's not the right direction for me. So it sounds like there's curiosity and more opportunity to explore. So why don't we go to the chat box and see if folks have some questions. Amy, I received a question privately just about how, what is the focus of the other 2 webinars? Maybe you could just talk about that for a second.
Sure, thank you. Yes, so today Jim was really covering how making progress or moving your business from where it is today with respect to its family friendliness to a more family friendly place, whatever that looks like for you, how that allows your business to begin operating more quickly and with a strategic advantage. In the second webinar, we'll talk about how being or becoming more family friendly will provide the right kind of supports specifically to your employees so that they are able to return to work quicker and more fully. So that takes more of the employee perspective. What are their needs? What kind of supports and benefits will help them reach their potential? So webinar 1, kind of business potential. Webinar 2, employee potential. And that is very much in response to the current pandemic. In webinar 3, Amanda will talk through how creating a people-first culture that provides the right level of safety and security to employees and that they then take home to their families is something that will be required to keep going. So to build that sustainability for your business to be successful well into the future. So I hope that covers it.
Thank you.
Yep.
I also wanted to mention that when Jim talked about SOCA and COON, we just published a case study about them on the website. So if you wanted to read more about how they were able to work towards the paid leave policies and also the minimum wage, we interview both the owner and also we interview employees to better understand the benefits to them. I have another question coming in about what what costs to look at when you're budgeting and trying to justify the expense to make these changes? Jim, can you give us a little more on that?
Sure, I'd love to. It's a great question. You know, within our business, you know, prime cost are labor and food cost, and typically that's been averaging close to 50 or 60%. It's that labor cost, what's driving that is a soft cost with the cost of turnover. So we're hoping to take the cost of turnover, the money that we typically spend on the hiring process, the training, the orientation, the retaining, and utilize some of that in order to provide these benefits up front, with the idea that you aren't going to lose as many employees, and employees are going to feel like they want to stay on your team longer. Speaking with Sean at Koan and Soka, his employees are very, very happy now, obviously, but I don't think there's going to be an issue with turnover there. Nobody's going to steal their employees away, and their employees know that the business and the owners are taking care of them. So I think that's where really the dollar amount in order to try to budget for some of these benefits are going to come from. And again, I think there's an opportunity to get creative, and you doesn't necessarily, to begin this, have to spend a lot of money. There's opportunities for benefits to be offered as a starting point and then working forward from there. You don't have to start at $15 an hour for a living wage, but you do have to start at a point where it's going to help your employees if they do have to stay home.
Great, that's really helpful. We have another question about business owners not sure where to start when it comes to implementing these ideas and how they could get further assistance.
Would you like me to take that one?
Please.
Okay. I think that really the key is signing up for some of our one-on-one help that Performentor team can offer. It's going to be a little bit about an assessment up front. It's customized. So we have to know, even though we're all hospitality, food service, restaurants, hotels, and tourism, it's all a little bit different. And the key will be to customizing these benefits that are going to work best for your workforce. So I think the one-on-one consultation is going to really help identify that and see what will resonate most with your employees, and then be able to work through just a phased approach of taking one at a time and implementing. There's a lot of communication that needs to happen with your employees, more communication now than ever, especially with them coming back into work. So we can help you with that communication plan as well. And once we start the ball rolling, it really does come into play, and you'll be surprised how much time you save by not getting out there and constantly trying to rehire employees. Thanks.
Thank you. Amy, there's a question about the paid leave benefit coming out of federal legislation, versus what the future looks like.
Yeah, so I think right now there will be a period of time where that benefit will be at least, partially covered by federal monies. And I think this is a great time to take that as, like, to Jim's point, where maybe you take a small step now, maybe you don't have all those resources within your business, but if you can take advantage of what's out there, either through PPP or the CARES Act. And again, we'd have to get, kind of one-on-one with you to discuss like what would make sense, because it's not really a one size fits all, unfortunately, but like thinking through what that game plan could look like. And then how do we transfer, or how do we make a plan to transfer that benefit so that you're not doing a takeaway when those programs run out, to the best of your ability to guard against that, because that does not feel good usually. So, again, that's where this short-term plus long-term and a plan to get from one to the other can really help. And I don't know, Jim, do you have anything more specific to add with respect to? Okay.
No, I think you covered it. That was a good answer.
Okay, we have one more question. I think this would be for Jim, since Amanda is not here with us today. What is considered pandemic-related education training? And then following up on that, is it training that's long-term development and growth of an employee, or is it just specific to COVID best practices?
That's a great question. There's several questions within that. Mm-hmm. Let me at least start by, much of it, at least up front, is pandemic-related experience and training. It's around understanding how to navigate some of the new travel and traffic patterns within your place. It's about utilizing PPE. It's about re-understanding what the social distancing guidelines are. And it's really about understanding the impact on your employees and your customers. And through a lot of communication is where, and that's where some of the training comes in, to understand some of the emotions that your customers and employees are feeling and being able to give them avenues to address some of those. And then from there, the training gets into more around understanding around the behavioral side. And I do know that we have Amanda here, I think on the line. So Amanda, if you're here, you might be able to touch on that a little bit better than I can. And we'd love to hear your input.
All right, Jim, you covered it pretty well. The only other thing that I would add is that I would really look at the actions of people that create the safe culture. When we look at safety and creating systems, I apologize. My dog is playing with a squeaky toy, and this is totally COVID. So I apologize if you hear him in the background. With that being said, I want to make sure that, you know, when we're creating a safe environment and we're engineering it, that's great. But really, when you look at accidents or people feeling unsafe, it's because somebody engaged in an action that led to an injury, or maybe somebody feeling sick, or, you know, something of that nature. So one of the things that we'll talk about in my specific training is how do you really build that safety culture? And we'll look at feedback, we'll look at goal setting, and what are some of those family forward practices that can really enhance your safety culture. And there's actually policies that might be actually motivating employees to be behaving unsafely and that you might not even realize. So we'll cover that in that webinar as well.
That's great. And there was just one more piece to that one, and that was about, can this training also have the opportunity for growth of an employee, possibly a higher paying position, or sort of give them more opportunities?
And I'll answer that, Lisa. It definitely does. I mean, we have to stabilize our foundation first, of course, and get our people back to work and get some sales flowing in, and really kind of establish our new normal, you know, so to speak, get our sea legs. But we can't lose sight of developing our employees. And that's one of the things that the new workforce, millennials, are looking for. So how do you do that within the business? I'm a large proponent of not sending people out to training. Adult learners will learn 70% of what they need to learn on the job. Another 20% is by observing, and the last 10% is just by watching a computer or going to a class. So there is a lot of opportunity to help your employees develop on the job. And it's about spinning some of the conversations that you have. It's about individual plans. It's about understanding what they're going to learn when they do their job every day versus what do you need to learn and what are you going to do to learn that. But there's a lot of opportunity to build leadership, to build supervisory skills. And our employees are going to need a much different level of management now because we're managing a different workforce. So I definitely think there's opportunity. And as the transition happens from the generations in the workforce, there'll be a lot of opportunity. There's going to be a lot of need for younger supervisors and managers to come in and take over.
And then on the Koan and SOCA about that 10% fee, someone wants to know, is that a separate line out on the bill, or is it just incorporated into the food prices?
Thank you, Lisa. I should have probably said that too. Sean has that as a separate line item. So at the end of your bill, at the end of the receipt, you'll see a hospitality sustainability charge of 10%. And he's doing that really to offset the cost of the living wage and the paid sick leave. But he's also produced a business that is extremely safe for his customers. And that was what he's really been trying to do, is get much more of a safer environment. And people are coming out. His sales are coming back. He's got also a large patio where he can seat people as well. But essentially the sustainability charge, we think that employees are not minding that at all, and will continue to be willing to pay that, knowing that it's offering them a safer environment.
And Jim, what guidance do they now provide regards tipping?
So we're still able to tip. Gratuities are still appreciated, just like before. And what Sean's trying to do is split some of the gratuities throughout the business as well. And that seems to have a really good impact. Everybody seems to be very willing to do that, because now that they're earning this higher wage, it's a little less intimidating to say, I want to give away some of my gratuities, but understanding it's about everybody in the business. So they're trying to do some splitting of the gratuities and pooling them, but people are still adding gratuities to their bills as well.
Okay, that's great. We have just a few more minutes left before we close, but I noticed there's just a lot of just some comments in the chat box. If anybody would like to share anything, you could just let me know in the chat box and I'd be happy to unmute you for a moment. So we'll just take a minute to see if anybody has anything else, and then we'll finish up. Okay. So just to finish up this afternoon, just a reminder that for your participation in the webinar this afternoon, you will be receiving the recorded other videos that Amy and Jim spoke to you about. They're both approximately 30 minutes. You will also be receiving the companion Family Forward Return to Work Kit in terms of the hospitality one. That will really help you begin to really think through how you might take some steps. You know, these webinars are truly just an overview and a very brief introduction into what you'll be able to do with the kits. And then also when you go in and get access to this material, you can just let us know right there that you're interested in this one-on-one support, which initially we have several hours put aside for no cost support for business who are highly motivated to make change. And so as a result of expressing interest, as I said earlier, we will simply ask you to fill out a brief application of interest, and then we'll be communicating with people. I would estimate that to be later in the month or possibly after Labor Day. It really just depends on how many applications come in. So just to close, I wanted to just remind you on the next slide that you can find the guide to Family Forward Workplaces on our website. As Jim mentioned, all of the benefits are there. It shows what the opportunity is for your business as well as for employees and our future workforce, our children. And then again, just don't forget, if you want to apply for that one or more support, you will find that on our homepage as well. So I'm going to turn it back over to Megan to close us.
Yeah, I just want to thank everybody for participating with us today. And if you haven't really spent some time on familyforwardnc.com, I would encourage you to visit that website. There are example policies that you can consider for your business, different workplace guides, and there's a business directory with other North Carolina companies who are incorporating some of these family-friendly policies into their business. So if you haven't spent some time there, I would go there. And otherwise, thank you all very much for your time.
Yes, thanks everyone. And if you already have a family-friendly workplace that you wanted to tell us about, we'd love to hear about that as well. So thank you. I know your time is valuable, and I hope this has been helpful for you this afternoon. Thank you.